All right, fans of Esoterica, I have to say I am really stoked. I'm really happy to be sitting down with a YouTuber I really admire, and really happy to get to work together. Denis from Foolish Fish has, I mean, one of the best esoteric related YouTube channels, and I'm sure that if you're a fan of Esoterica and you don't know about Foolish Fish, you gotta like pause, go subscribe, check out Denis' content. I mean, it's just really incredible stuff for sort of occult news and books, but also Esoteric Saturdays, where he gets more into practical stuff on the side of occultism stuff you're not going to get from my channel. And I have to say, Denis, you're just a really warm and welcoming teacher who's unpretentious and humble, and yet so knowledgeable. And you just provide information in a way that's just like accessible on topics that I think are just like incredibly difficult to get to. I mean, I'll say one of my favorite episodes that you've done in your Esoteric Saturdays episode is the one on the left-hand path. I know it's really popular. Right. And you take a concept that is so convoluted that people get so wrong. And then I think it's what, a 12-minute episode or something like that. And it's crystal clear. And I'm just like, that's that's the kind of thing that would just, if a bunch of 15-year-old edgy necromancer guys could just, who read too much Nietzsche and Aleister Crowley could get access to that episode, the world would be better. It would be an objectively better world.
I'm deeply, deeply flattered by your very kind words.
It's great stuff, folks. And if you don't know Foolish Fish, go subscribe. Denis is nearly up to 100,000. And again, 100,000 is what matters, because you get a trophy.
Yes,
we get a YouTube. We win at YouTube. And I want to. I'm cheerleading for Denis to hit that 100,000 mark as soon as possible. So if he's not there yet, by the time you see this, pause this, run over there, subscribe, get him up to 100,000. I'm cheerleading him a ton. Denis, we get to sit down and we're interview. I get to interview you, and we're interviewing each other about a thing that we love passionately, which is the intersection of esotericism and books.
Yes. What we love the most.
Yeah. It's just like, and again, I think for folks out there, I mean, who doesn't like? I mean, is there a person that like is interested in the occult and esotericism who also just like, oh, I hate books?
Right.
They don't exist.
One does often lead to the other. There's no question.
I think so. So I'm really excited to sit down and do this cool exchange interview where Denis interviewed me about some ideas about books that I have, and some things about books, and I get to sit down with, and you can see behind him, this is a guy who's about the book life. I mean, look at beautiful bookshelf, beautiful books. So I'm really excited to sit down with you, Denis, and ask you. So let's jump right into it. What's the one book you'd want on a desert island?
At the beginning of the interview that we did, where I was interviewing you, which is available on the Foolish Fish channel right now, we talked about how I might cheat a little bit in some of these questions.
I certainly did. So ask for forgiveness, not permission.
That's the one. And I thought a little bit about all the esoteric books that I have, how useful they are. I use so many of my books all the time. But ultimately, I think that if I was on a desert island, I wouldn't be taking with me a practitioner book. I wouldn't be taking with me a book with instructions, or a book with occult knowledge in the form that most people are thinking, if that makes sense. So the book that I've chosen is not actually one book. It's a collection of books. And I've got some of them over here. They're the Andrew Lang fairy books. Andrew Lang collected in the mid-19th century all of the fairy tales, and actually maybe fairy tales is the wrong word for them. Folk tales is probably more accurate, from around the world, as many as he could find. And You know, I think of Albert Einstein, who was once asked, what do you do to make a child more intelligent? And his answer was, read them fairy tales. And if you want them to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales. And I strongly, strongly subscribe to that. I think that there is so much ancient knowledge that has survived till today thanks to folk tales, thanks to fairy tales, disguised as children's stories. But having a child myself and having read these tales to my child, they are, yes, for children so that they can enjoy them as an amusement, but they are clearly written for the parents. They are very, very clearly written for the parents, and they provide entertainment. There's no question about it. But also the symbology that is in there, the symbolism, the deeper truths that can be found in folk tales and fairy tales is, for me, that's what I would want with me on a desert island. Nice mix of entertainment and deep ancient knowledge. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's a fantastic answer. Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Yeah.
I wish I had the whole collection. It's just that I started collecting books just as Folio Society were going out of print. I managed to get these few, right? They were originally printed for about £40 per book, $55, something along those lines. Now they go for about $1,000, $1,500 for the orange book and stuff. Yeah, it's the way it goes.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate. Also, the dark side of our love for books is the book-induced poverty that one we can endure.
Yes.
The books give birth to more books.
Don't we know it?
What's the most beautiful book that you own? I mean, you're one thing I really admire about your love of books is you also have a deep appreciation for the aesthetics of books. And so I'm curious, what's seeing all that glittering gold behind you, what's the most beautiful book that you own?
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult question.
It's good that's difficult. That means you have a lot of beautiful books.
Yeah, I'm very, very lucky. In fact, I can honestly say that I started collecting. It's those from your channel who can relate to the fact that I am very much a Taurus. I love stuff. I love the look of stuff. I love the feel of stuff. I love the smell of stuff. And a beautifully made book is it's a way of embodying somebody's thoughts. And if a thought is beautiful, then it's worth having in a beautiful form. I think having put a bit of thought into this, I was going to go with this one, Le Pater, which was very, very kindly gifted to me by Century Guild, which is Alfred Muchas, Alphonse Muchas, I'm sorry. Opus Magnum, right? There's a full review of that on my channel. But I think that, in fact, it's probably going to be this one, which really has everything that I love about books in it. It's the Book of Common Prayer, also Folio Society, right? And it's got this lovely slipcase, which is kind of shaped in this funky way that makes it possible to see how beautiful the spine is, and then this really lovely marbled cover with the gilding down the side over here, and then the spine over here. It's just this, and then inside, of course, all the illustrations inspired by Albrecht Dürer and Hans Holbein.
That is really lovely.
Just really, really lovely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this book really does everything that a book should do for me. It's
that's amazing. Yeah.
Gold edging and then green edging on the front here. Yeah.
That's beautiful. You know, Denis, one day you have to come make a pilgrimage and join me in New York for the antiquarian book fair. I think that you and I would
love that.
We would have a truly grand time together at the antiquarian book fair. So if you ever want to make a trip,
I'm in.
Yeah, that would be that's an amazing book. So from the Book of Common Prayer, let's go to the most esoteric. What's your favorite esoteric book? I would say that the Book of Common Prayer may be the most exoteric book that you might have, religious speaking.
Absolutely.
The Anglicans or whatever, they're kind of they're a little vanilla. So what's
for sure.
So what's the most favorite esoteric book you have in your collection?
Okay, my favorite esoteric book is not necessarily the most esoteric book. Most esoteric books that I own, that would be a very difficult one to pin down. Possibly maybe the Book of the Black Dragon, another gorgeous book by Atramentus Press. This is extremely esoteric.
Yes, yeah, the Book of the Black Dragon is, yeah.
Yes, a little inscrutable. I've reviewed this as well and given my thoughts on it, and I think it's a fantastic book if you have time to devote to it, for sure. But my favorite esoteric book is maybe going to disappoint some. It's a book that I used to have in paperback, and I've given away the paperback because it's not the best way to experience this book. The best way to experience this book is via Kindle, in fact, through a tablet, because the book, and let me tell you what it is. It's many people watching already know. It's The 72 Angels of Magick by Damon Brand. This is a very new book, very new book. It's a few years old, right? It's certainly I'm not sure when exactly it was published. I'm going to guess probably 2015, maybe. Okay. So very, very recent. There are many books that are published regularly on, self-published regularly on Amazon, and of varying quality, to put things mildly.
Charitably, yeah.
Yes. The Gallery of Magic books by Damon Brand are great, in my opinion, because they are based on sound magical theory. They are perfect for the absolute beginner, in the sense that anyone can just pick them up and get started. There is one aspect which is very interesting, is that nothing's really explained, why does this work, right? Mm-hmm. Just do this, it'll work. Do that, it'll work. And you're being exposed to all of these sigils, these diagrams, these names, and my reaction, my initial reaction was, well, why does this work? I need to find the origin of these sigils. I need to find the origins of these names, and so on and so forth. And in fact, I'd say that that's probably why I know a little bit about the origins of magic, the earlier origins of magic, of which you are, of course, an expert, right? But in terms of my favorite, yes, it's the 72 Angels of Magic, which were known as the Shem HaMeforash angels, mentioned in I think it's Sefer Raziel Hamelech, possibly. I'm not sure, 100% sure that that's the absolute origin, but they are simply the 72 names of God, extracted from just a few 3 lines in the book of Genesis, and this particular book that says 72 Angels of Magic explains how to approach the entities associated with those 72 names of God and what they are associated to. This is how you can approach them. This is what they are likely to be able to help you with. And yeah, you get in touch and you find out if it's true that that's what they can help you with. And then you find out that, yeah, maybe they can help you out with something else that another book will tell you about, or something, or whatever. But the contact is easy, safe, and informative. In my experience, has been informative every single time. I love that book. Really, really strongly recommend it for people, of course, who are happy with an Abrahamic approach to magic. Right? People watching my channel come from all kinds of different backgrounds, of course. Yeah. But that's my favorite. Yeah.
That's a great one. I haven't heard of that one. I have to check that out. Yeah, I sometimes call those trailhead books. They're like the beginning of a trail.
Yes,
they get you going, and you really have to do the hiking. But yeah, those are great kinds of books. That's fantastic. I'll have to take a look at that. And for folks who are wondering, we're going to have all these books in the description below. So we're going to have them all below. So if you're scribbling furiously to know what books, just look in the description. All of the books on both of our interviews are going to be down there, assuming that they're accessible and, not bound in human flesh in some secret library somewhere. So what's a book, Denny, that changed your life? What book sort of altered the course of your life? I often say that no one accidentally esoterics, that getting into esotericism is something happened,
yes.
that we go off in Hebrew we say go off the derech. You kind of get off the trail. You're doing something new. So what book changed your life the most?
Well, again, this is a book that maybe people might not suspect if they haven't been watching my channel very assiduously, but I've certainly talked about it quite regularly. It's the New International Version of the Bible. I read it as an atheist, expecting to find certain things. My approach was, this book must be nonsense. I will read it and then I'll know for myself. I'll be able to point to in what ways it's nonsense. And what I found was very, very different from what I was expecting. The reason why New International Version, rather than any other, is because it was the one that I read. The reason I read that one rather than any other was because of its renowned scholarship. Many people say, no, the King James Version is the version to read. I'd say it's a very beautiful version to read, but it was a translation of the Latin translation, right? So not certainly not scholarly accurate in any way, but that was the first time that I thought to myself, okay, there's more. There's obviously more, because I tried certain techniques suggested in the in the various parts of the Bible, and they worked. They simply worked. And I talked about in what ways they worked quite specifically in the very, very early videos in my Esoteric Saturdays series. And I thought to myself, well, if I was so wrong about Judaism and about Christianity, maybe I'm wrong about many, many other traditions, faiths, approaches to ultimate reality, right? And that's really what got me set off on, then reading the Quran, and then reading, then getting into Buddhism, and to the point where I then quit my up till then path of being I was studying hotel management. And this is actually an answer to a later question of what people might not know about me. But yes, I was studying hotel management. I quit that and went fully down that path of world religions, the esoteric aspects of world religions, which was clearly the whole point in my view, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, I think Voltaire said that the Bible is more celebrated than known, but I think it's also more denigrated than known.
Yes.
And I tell people, read the damn thing. It makes Game of Thrones look like Fisher Price.
Oh, for sure.
But that's a wonderful answer. The NIV. That's wonderful.
Yes. Interesting. I'll leave that. We can move on.
Okay. You're a knowledgeable guy, and we all have gaps, right? There's always gaps in our knowledge.
Coming from you, Justin, that's that is high praise. I'm not sure.
No, I look. You can. I think we both have some what are the BS detectors when we see some YouTube content. We're like, this kind of person's just kind of spinning their wheels. No, man, I know you're not that kind of person. You think deeply, you read deeply.
I try to.
I think you do, and we all have gaps, right?
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
What's the gap that you feel guilty about? What's the
I feel
thing
guilty
that you
about
feel like
all of my gaps?
All the gaps.
Yes. I'm a big Socrates man. I know that I know nothing.
At least you don't know. Yeah. Of course, that's the true path to wisdom. What one keeps you up? Which one is the one that's like, I should know X, but
listen, there really are so many. The next one that I have vowed to work on is Tibetan Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
I strongly believe that Tantra is at the origin, excuse me, of most modern Western magic. Right? I strongly believe that the currents that started in the 19th century were informed by the little bit that they thought they knew about Tantra. They integrated it as much as they possibly could. They gave it a Western flavor as much as they could. But ultimately, I think that that's where we need to be looking to as an origin. But it was the Indian Tantra that they were really looking at, probably for the reason that these English colonialists were in India at the time, right? Having learned a little bit about Indian Tantra over the past year, specifically with this fantastic book, Tantra Illuminated, which is just the most fantastic introduction to Tantra that anyone could possibly hope for. My understanding is that Tibetan Buddhism, also known as Tantric Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism, is the form of Tantra which is best suited to export. The author of Tantra Illuminated says that Westerners trying to get into Tantra might really find that quite difficult, just because we have such different. We're coming from such a different place, right? We're approaching it from such a different angle. We have such different assumptions about what's values and so on and so forth. Different sets of symbols and so on. So he's saying he was saying that Indian Tantra might just not be approachable, but apparently the Tibetan version of Tantra is ultimately designed for export, and it works very, very well for the Westerner who wants to approach that. So that's my immediate next lacuna to see to.
Yeah, that's a huge one too. I mean, the Tibetan systems are just so baroque and complicated and beautiful. Yeah. I do like the fact they call themselves Vajrayana, the diamond path, and refer to some of the other paths as Hinayana, the lesser path. I do love the Buddhist beef. Like we know how to get enlightened. No, you don't. We know how to get enlightened. I love the sort of the jocular Buddhism.
Yes,
because I just love how it disrupts a lot of stereotypes we have about like, no, I can meditate better than you can. I know more mantras. Like I just love the athleticism that can go into some of these things. So from the super abstract to the more like concrete, we love books, but they're not perfect. What are your pet peeves? What are your book pet peeves? What are the things that you're like, you pick a book up and you go, what's your book pet
in truth peeve? My number one pet peeve, I mean, many people know that I love the form of a book, and so if no care has been put into the form of the book, then yeah, it bothers me. But the thing that I hate the most is when somebody has just taken a Word document and published it without any kind of of formatting. There's this fantastic I'm going to say artist, because what he does is clearly art. I'm not sure what word to use. He lays out books. His name is Joseph Uccello, and he is a gentleman behind the Occult series of books, which and his work really is a pleasure to read. Every letter has been thought about, every font, every placement of everything is just lovely. But then you have publication houses which, I like what you've written. That's fine. Send me a Word document, put a cover on it. There you go, have it.
Yeah.
Those tiny little margins. No, not okay. Not okay.
This is the thing I think often that I've learned about collecting antiquarian books is just the variety in the way that books were laid out and book designs, and how I think how pedestrian they've become. And I agree with you. Like, give me a lot of parking lot when it comes to margins and things like that. Yeah, we need them. We need our margins.
We do. Whether we use them for making notes or not.
Yeah, we need them.
Just, text needs to breathe. Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite publishers. This is a thing that I come. This is one of the many forms of knowledge I come to you for. And you're a man about the publishing world. You know a lot about what's going on in that world. And so, what are some of your favorite? Favorite publishers, occult or otherwise?
Sure. There's some extraordinary publishers out there. Small companies, often run by one or two people, little family businesses. And what I mainly look for are publishers who have a sense of just a sense of integrity as to what they are supposed to be doing, especially in the world of occult books. They are embodying important thought, and so yeah, I do really admire companies such as, we were talking about Anathema Publishing in the interview where I was interviewing you just earlier on. Just beautiful books from Anathema Publishing. Gabriel McCarry really overseeing the whole thing on his own is mind-boggling. Scarlet Imprint also, I mean, some of the books that really got me to fall in love with the esoteric modern publishing. Scarlet Imprint, there's no question about it. They've just today re-released, or at least announced pre-orders for a second edition of The True Grimoire by Jake Stratton Kent. And that, again, that's one of the books that I saw in Watkins Books on that on the same day that I saw Aurora, right? And so, oh my goodness, this is such a beautiful book. but you know, it scared me at the time. I wasn't completely sure what I was looking at, and then by the time I realized that I needed this book, it was too late. It was, you know, it was no longer 60 or 50 pounds or whatever it was at the time, but rather 300 or 400 pounds. And those were not prices that I could really afford at the time. So they go up very, very fast, and understandably so. You know, a lot of people want them. But this new second edition, they've got a few more than the first edition, from what I understand. There should be enough to satisfy at least some of the demand. There's Theion Publishing that I deeply respect. Azoth Press, you know, from Miskatonic Books. This is their imprint, basically. Azoth Press do some very beautiful books. Troy Books, also great books specifically aimed at the witchcraft and traditional witchcraft kind of area. They do a few ceremonial magic ones as well. And Black Letter Press, the book that I finished translating last month, right, which is now is the esotericism of Dante, which should be in people's hands this time next month. Fingers crossed.
Nice, mazel tov. Congratulations. And also just so folks know, again, you got to sign up for Denise's channel. So make sure to subscribe, because a big part of what you do is cover. You're on the beat. You're like the occult beat reporter of sort of occult publishing, and your weekly updates about what's getting published and made. I mean, it's everything from books to games to you know, new tarot cards. It's really the whole world of it. So folks need to make sure that just that stuff alone, that is a news source, is absolutely worth just subscribing, and to your content. It's really worth it. It's really, I rely on it. It's really fantastic.
Thank you very much. That's a very kind plug. Yes, I certainly do my best with those news videos. Yeah,
those are great. So what kind of what book do you think needs a new edition? You know, we just mentioned that, you know, a lot of these sort of smaller imprints, they can only, you know, they only produce so many copies of these texts, and I think that there's a weird sort of supply and demand thing, where a lot of occult practitioners want and need these books, and because of the nature of the publishers, there are not many of them being made, and you know, things need new editions. And so yes. What calls out to you most desperately in need of a new edition?
I guess one perfect example of what you just said is the Hekateon, which just got a third edition last month, 2 months ago, something along those lines, and was sold out within a week. It was just very, very fast. And it's one of those books which is always going to be in demand, particularly because the process of practicing through this book requires you to destroy the book in certain ways, and so it's not going to be a book that's going to be passed on unless it's been bought by a scalper and then sold for ridiculous amounts of money later on. But
cult scalpers. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that having had this new batch on the market, it's probably not fair to give the Hekateon as an answer. I think Andrew Chumbley's books, which are incredibly popular. I think when they were originally printed, they probably weren't expecting them to be as popular as they ended up being. But yes, Azoetia, trying to find a copy of Azoetia at a reasonable price, it's hard. It's impossible. Yeah. And yes, those books, the Black Dragon of Essex, they need new editions. They need new accessible, price-wise, right? New accessible editions. Yep, I think that's probably going to be my answer there.
It's accessible in terms of price. I think that's a thing that both of us again lament over. The price that we have to pay for some of these books it's just mind-boggling. So what's your dream book? What's the book that if you could conjure it onto your shelves using whatever wows you had, what book would you conjure today on your shelf? What's your dream book?
I'm a simple man. I like beautiful books, esoteric or not. And this one, you could argue that there was an esoteric aspect to it. It's the Kelmscott edition of Chaucer, the Kelmscott Chaucer. The complete works, illustrated by Edward Burne-Jones and William Morris. It's widely recognized as the most beautiful book ever to have been published, especially the 48 copies in white pigskin. I was showing a replica that you can buy nowadays for about $400, but the original ones, when they come up for sale, they go for a lot of money. I think one was sold recently for $140,000. Rightly so. You can see documentaries. I'm sorry, on YouTube.
The vellum alone, just the vellum is worth.
Yes, that's right.
15 grand. Yeah,
that's right. Yes, I think 18 of them were printed. Every page was printed on vellum. That would be the dream. That would be a lovely book to own. I think that would one day, right?
One day. You got to win the lottery or whatever. Or become an alchemist, whatever it takes. So that's a great answer. That is a really beautiful book. And just, people don't realize how expensive these books get. It's amazing that, $100,000 for a book, it really is mind-boggling, but they are incredibly beautiful.
That's why they're eternal objects, right? There's
you're right. I mean, they really are works of art, but compressed. I mean, it's a really amazing thing. The book arts are profoundly beautiful. So, Denis, here we come to the fun part of the show, where part of how we make our living is by getting our ideas out there on YouTube.
Yes.
And of course, how part of what that is we try to tell people things that are popular because we want to get we need to get the clicks and we need to get the subscribes and the likes. And so one of the things we don't do is talk about things that will make people not like what we have to say.
That's right.
So here we come to the moment where we both might lose some subscribers, but what's an unpopular opinion that you have?
In fact, I have talked about this opinion, And in fact, we've mentioned it already in our conversation right now. It's my opinion that I won't say most, to be kind, but I'm going to say many, 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 many people who believe that they are following a left-hand path are not. Right. Just to put things as diplomatically as possible, Anton LaVey was an atheist, and his understanding of the tantric concept of the left-hand path, because that's where it comes from, that's where the term left-hand path comes from, was, can I go as far as inexistent? Maybe not, but close enough to inexistent to be a problem. And that has spawned a tidal wave of authors and publishers who have gone, okay, left-hand path, I get it. You do what society doesn't like.
Right.
But no,
being edgy is not the left-hand path. Yeah.
It's not the left.
Right. If you like what you're doing, you're not doing it right.
That's
not the
right.
left-hand path.
That's
like,
right.
It has, yeah.
That's
yeah.
Right. It's not about doing what society doesn't like. It's about doing what you find repulsive. Not the whole time, of course. Also, you know, this is one of the practices of a left-hand path, but if exactly what you just said, Justin, if you are enjoying what you are doing, then you're not doing it right. You're not doing it. That's
been my experience too. And again, I can't say that I understand much, but when I read it, I was like, yeah, if you're getting off on being a bad person or doing mean stuff, you're just a bad person doing mean stuff.
Doing mean stuff,
you're not transgressing anything. You're just being bad. You're just being unlikable.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think that's a point that again, that episode you did on the left-hand path, I was like, the army of 15-year-old young men aping Crowley need to be sat down and have a come to foolish fish moment. So,
well, a lot of people didn't like what I said. I mean, you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
But fair enough, and understandably, you know, it's become a thing of its own. I personally don't think that there's. I certainly haven't managed to imagine the value of that thing that it's become, but people assure me that there is. I'm happy with that. That's fine. But it is not the left-hand path. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a super solid. Yeah, I really appreciate that analysis. I think that's a fantastic analysis. What's the book you're most proud to own? If you had someone to come in for 5 minutes, what would be the book that you would want to show them? What would be the book you'd be proudest to show, proudest to own?
Again, you know, I'm a simple guy. It's this one. It's a first edition of Aldous Huxley's The Perennial Philosophy. This
cool.
This book meant a huge amount to me when I read it, quite early in my journey of discovery, and I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to find a first edition, and it turned out wasn't a problem at all. I bought this for very, very little money. It was certainly under $20, and yeah, it's a 1946, so recent, but for me at the time, at least, it was yeah, the most important book that I'd read so far. It is flawed, there's no question. It's also enlightening. It's so full of equivalent teachings from different traditions, and it's from Aldous Huxley, whom I love, absolutely love. He was another catalyst for my interest in the esoteric. His essay at the end of, in fact, it's an appendix at the end of Heaven and Hell, which is a second book to the Doors of Perception, which goes into just so much of what I was interested in at the time: the nature of mind, the nature of reality in relation to mind. It was very, very important reading for me when, I guess I was 20, something along those lines. And then, yes, finding the perennial philosophy and reading what I'd been experiencing, that all of these traditions really have different details, but they're pointing to the deeper reality in their own ways. That was deeply important to me, and that first edition is close to my heart.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to think about books, is that they don't have to be beautiful or rare. They can be a crucial part of our journey, and therefore they're close to us spiritually. They become sort of fellow sojourners on the way.
Right.
And I think in that way they become sacred, which is, I think, is books can, even a very simple book can be very sacred in that way, because it's
100%.
part of our journey. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. What's a book you recommend most often? What book do you end up putting in people's hands, or at least recommending that people get in their hands?
We were talking some minutes ago during the earlier interview, where I was interviewing you about tarot, and this is in fact the book that I have recommended more than any other book. It's Lon Milo Duquette's Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot. The reason I recommend it so often is because it's written by Lon Milo Duquette, who has got one of the most approachable, friendly writing styles in the whole business. He cares about his reader understanding. He doesn't care about sounding clever or aggrandizing what he's saying or anything along those lines. He has a deep understanding, in my opinion, of the thelemic current. He's got a deep understanding of many aspects that inform the thelemic current, and he is very eager for others to understand it as well. And so, so his writing style is such a pleasure. It's funny, it's witty, it's also very, very well informed. And this book gives you everything that you need to understand the very esoteric Thoth Tarot of Aleister Crowley. There is so much to understand in that tarot, so many different aspects to the symbols that he used with Lady Frida Harris, who actually did the artwork for these cards. And in order to be able to understand the cards themselves, there are certain concepts which are necessary to grasp beforehand, right? Astrology and hermetic forms of Kabbalah and Egyptian mythology, and so many different aspects, which he explains very clearly, very simply, in a way that is very clear, so that whoever's reading it not only understands what the tarot is supposed to be doing or is supposed to be saying, but understands the principles that are underlying it. So having read it, you get a good idea of most of post-19th century occult traditions in the West. It's a great primer for anyone who's curious about occult practice after the 19th century, end of 19th century.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I'm going to add that to my list among many others. Yeah, it's really not a joke, folks. We're gonna this episode is going to cost some money. You guys need to sign up for Denise memberships and take a look at my Patreon, because we're gonna need we're gonna need a boost of cash after these interviews. So, but begin. What have you ever heard the story about the rabbi and the rich man? This is a classic story. The rich man invites a local poor rabbi, to his mansion, and he wines and dines the rabbi, and he serves him on all these silver platters and all the food, and shows him all the things. And he has this story goes on and on. Anyway, the rabbi goes back to the village, and the local villagers are like, "What was it like to dine in the house of the richest man of all of the Pale of Russia?" And the rabbi says, "I've never seen a man so completely impoverished. He might as well wear tatters. He's so poor." And they're like, "What are you talking about? He's so poor. He just said he had gold goblets and silver plates, and he had this." And he's like, "But I've never seen a man have so much, but experience such extreme poverty. There wasn't a book in his house."
Yes.
Right? What a poor man. What a really poor man. But I will tell you, the books will also make you poor in the silver and the gold part too.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So it's a great tale until you're like, "Oh yeah, this book costs $200." So
I love that.
You have to
very, very
find
good,
find a way to balance it out. So occult books, as you know, and as I think both of us know, they can get pondersome, huge tomes of, Necronomicon size, Harry Potter, like old telephone books worth of information, the blue brick famously. What's the opposite book for you? What's the book that's pound for pound? I guess I should be using the metric system. Kilo for kilo.
Kilo for kilo, yes.
Kilo for kilo. What book is the most useful book in terms of its size? What's the most economical book, as opposed to the big one? So
Listen, I've got two for you, Justin. And really these are two books that are going to speak to different people, right? People who are interested in a grimoiric tradition. This is the one. This is Jake Stratton Kent's The True and Secret Grimoire, where he's basically taken the Book of Turiel, the secret grimoire of Turiel. I can't remember if it's the secret grimoire or the secret book of Turiel, and which was a forgery, and he has adapted it to the best of his knowledge, which is incredible in terms of grimoires, to make it work, to make it an approachable grimoire for beginners to work. His plan was to make a book that any student could fit into their rucksack and travel the world and learn magic with, right? There's a paperback edition of this. I was very, very lucky to get a hardcover edition of it, but the paperback edition is of no lesser value. And yeah, so the Sworn and Secret Grimoire by the Master Arbatel. There's so many aspects here of the grimoiric tradition going on. Aspects taken from the Arbatel, aspects taken from the Greater Book of Solomon, aspects taken from just many well-respected books, right? Which is why the original grimoire of Arbatel of Turiel was successful. But yes, and he's put his own spin on it, saying, well, it was a forgery anyway, this is my forgery. And
anything you can do, I can do better.
Well, yeah. Basically, yeah. If it works, then great, right? The other one is the one that I'm currently reading. Also a nice slim book, as all of Aidan Wachter's books are. This is Changeling, and I'm going to be reviewing this early next week, actually, at the time that we're recording this. A book of qualities. It's very, very short chapters, very often just one-page chapters. I think the most that I've found is about 3 pages. Just aspects of what it is to be a witch, but every single chapter, let me see how many chapters there are in total. Oh, because there are 2 parts to this, yeah, 47, 40, 49. Yes, keep going. 55 different chapters by the midpoint, when it starts going into other considerations and even more practical stuff. But every single one of these 55 parts have their own practice, so that the practitioner can experience these thoughts directly. That's a lot of great knowledge. I mean, anyone who has read Aidan Wachter is already likely to know the quality of his stuff, and yeah, that's that's one that I'm really looking forward to reviewing next week.
Awesome. Yeah, it's just, again, so many great, it's so great we're doing this, because it's such a great cross-pollination in terms of both our audiences, but also just like learning cool stuff from each other about books.
Right,
so great.
Right. We've got quite different but slightly overlapping areas of
just
of
a really
knowledge.
sort of great, like a, you know, sort of reflecting and refracting off of this shared passion. It's really just a lot of fun doing this. Well, we have the same kind of job.
Yes.
We're content creators, which is a thing that I didn't imagine myself being.
Right.
And of course, there are downsides to being a content creator, but there are also great parts of it.
Yes.
And what for you? And you've been doing this longer than I have. What for you? What's your favorite aspect of being a YouTube, specifically a YouTube content creator?
Aren't we lucky? My goodness. Yeah,
we are.
Yeah,
we are.
Yeah,
we should.
Yeah. Listen, there's no question that the number one answer to this is the people. There's by a long shot, it's the people that doing this has been has put me in contact with. You certainly not least. But being able to talk to the members of my channel on Discord, right? We chat regularly, or I'll see what they're talking about. It's just put me in contact with an entire community of people who care about the same things as I do. Right? Just something that I could never do locally. You know, I live in a very conservative area of the world. There is a little witchy shop that has opened in my town, but I went in there the other day to offer her some books, because, you know, my shelves get full up, so I hand over some books occasionally, and she was very, very surprised that somebody was coming in with kind words for once. So yes, having that community available to me, despite it not being physical and here locally, I get to talk to all of these people online. It's just fantastic. But more than that, even more than that, in addition to this, I would say, right? In addition to this, it's allowed me to be independent. I was a manager in an IT company, doing something that I wasn't particularly good at, right? But I was being paid enough to survive and pay the bills, and well, that's to a degree how I managed to buy all of these books, right? But since January, thanks to the generosity of members, you know, supporting the channel, thanks to all of the viewers who watch the videos and so on and so forth, I am now able to support myself to the same level as when it was just my job. And I'm now able to look after my son, which is, I have time to take care of my son who has a number of disabilities, and until now it was just my wife, and I was working all day and making videos all night. but now that I've been able to quit my job, I'm now able to take him to school. I'm able to teach him things during the day. When he comes back from school, I'm able to help him with his homework. I'm able to do so many fantastic things that I am just incredibly privileged to be able to do, thanks to being a content creator. So yeah, I mean, just the most wonderful thing that's happened to me, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I totally agree. I feel the same way. It's just, yeah, I feel same way. I was, working in the university, and I still work in the university, but underpaid as an adjunct, yeah. I think both of us feel really humbled and blessed that we have the support that we do. And I think I can say for both of us just how thankful and deeply appreciative we are for the people that help us make all this possible. So yeah, thank you all. I mean,
100%. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the book that you're going to get one day and you keep meaning to get it, but you don't get it? I know I forgot to answer the same question in my interview. Mine's the Blavatsky stuff. I don't have any of Blavatsky's books, but I'm going to get them eventually. I keep telling myself, one day, mañana. It's our mañana book, right? It's the book we know we need to get. It's down the road. We're going to get it eventually. In fact, it may be in your shopping cart right now somewhere on the internet, but you've never gotten it. What's the book that you're going to get? What's the book you're going to get to, but you haven't done it yet?
It's not in my cart. It's in my wish list.
Okay.
It's one of those books that is definitely, I will definitely read it one day. It's Franz Bardon's Initiation to Hermetics. I regularly get reminded that I need to know about this book, and I am certain, absolutely certain, that it's of high value, high quality. I've just never got around to buying it, getting hold of it, reading it, and I hang my head in shame every time somebody says to me, "What about Franz Bardon? I'd love to hear your thoughts on Franz Bardon." And I have to say, "Yeah, sorry. I'll read Initiation to Hermetics eventually." The thing is, every week I try to review a new book, and they tend to be books that have recently been released, or books that are particularly important that I missed over the past couple of years, maybe, right? But Franz Bardon is just missing in the roster, and I have to get around to it. I will, I promise.
Yeah, folks have to understand that we can't have read it all. We do our damnedest, but there's you can't do it all. You can't do it all. All right, I need you to summon your inner child, because it's show and tell time. So esoteric show and tell. It's one of my favorite parts of doing live streams is my show and tell. So what do you got for us, Denis? What's your esoteric show and tell?
I've shown most of the stuff that I've shown all of the stuff that I've created myself on my Esoteric Saturday videos. In fact, I've shown the process of creating those things. I've shown most of the most exciting objects that I've been sent by very kind people who've gifted me very interesting, very useful, powerful artifacts, but this is one that I haven't shown, not close up anyway. There we go. Can you see this? I bought this in China. in a little village called Yangshuo. Beautiful, beautiful, picturesque village in the Li River area, and it's a representation of the supreme god in Chinese culture. There we are. So it's basically many, many hands.
Oh yeah.
Surrounding this image of the supreme god.
It's like the opposite of Hobbes's Leviathan, where the Hobbes Leviathan is made up of lots of people. This is the hands are around the person. That's really cool. And the signature too is really neat. The seal script signature.
That's right.
It's beautiful.
It's a very, very elderly man that I bought this from. He had many artifacts up in a loft. He took us off the street and said, "Hey, come and see this cool stuff that I've got." And we went upstairs with him, and and he showed us all these beautiful, beautiful things. The Buddha that I have here is from the same place, actually. It's very lovely, serene,
beautiful, serene
Buddha.
Yeah, I have a little tiny Buddha, but I always prefer the one that's like the starving Buddha, where he's. I love the depiction of that, where he said that I had, what did he say? I had fasted so much that I could touch my spinal cord through my belly button. I love that image, just like the intense, of course it was the wrong, ultimately proved to be the wrong way, but I love that image of the Buddha with often you can see the veins and the sunken cheeks. And
some amazing
powerful
depictions of that.
Yeah, that image has always struck me as very powerful, and also as powerful as a dead end. I always like, I think that's the most, but those are beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Denny. Thank you for sharing. Those are beautiful. Well, from the profound to the guilty pleasures, what's your favorite guilty pleasure? But we read such intense, stuff about this, the most abstract, the most like arcane, and sometimes I think people just like, we need to veg out. And but what's your veg out guilty pleasure book? What do you when you escape from the world of summoning spirits and making sigils and, I don't know, communing with the holy guardian angel or whatever? What's your favorite guilty pleasure book?
You need something, right? Well, I've just taken these two artifacts down from the very shelf that embodies what you've just said. They kind of cover up with some with a veneer of respectability. It's my DC comics. I'm a huge DC fan. I am particularly the Green Lantern is my Jeff Johns did a fantastic run of comics on the Green Lantern starting in 2004, something along those lines, maybe even later. I'm not sure. For me, it's the best. It's the most entertaining story that I've read. It's so much fun, so much fun. The guy really understands mythology, and to me, the DC heroes are a modern embodiment of the gods, the Greek gods. I mean, Wonder Woman is explicitly Diana, although I would argue that she's probably more Athena than she is Artemis. But yeah, the archetypes are all right there. They're all very clear, very easy to recognize, and it's I think it's Grant Morrison, sorry, the name escaped me there for a second. Grant Morrison, who wrote that wonderful book, New Gods, talking about precisely the I'm going to say, yeah, divine aspects, at least godly aspects of these characters. Very
and Jeff
important.
Kripal has written. Jeff
Mm.
Kripal has written really great stuff on the overlap of esotericism in comic books as well.
Mm.
It's great stuff.
Yes, and of course DC also published Alan Moore's stuff. I mean, famously with great feuds ensuing and stuff. But Promethea for me is it's so central and important and a great introduction to modern magic, right? I think it's a very approachable way to get into that. Yeah,
and that's maybe a segue to the next question, right? What do you think are some fictional gateways to esotericism? I think a lot of people come to esotericism through the gateway drug of good fiction, and so I imagine that comic books being one of those avenues. Is there any other avenues that come to mind for you, or just in general, that are sort of fictional gateways to the world of esoterica?
Well, for me, the one that comes most readily to mind is Philip K. Dick, specifically Valis. Philip K. Dick had this very strange experience where he received, you probably know the story, he received this big beam of pink light that downloaded a load of information to his mind, and he then spent the rest of his short life trying to extract this information that had been given to him onto paper in written form, and there were it's just so much that he wrote after that, trying to get that information out. And he wrote Valis to talk a little bit about that experience from a semi-autobiographical, perspective. And it's beautiful to read. It's very touching. It's very sad. It's very funny at times as well. More often funny than sad, but of course the overarching feel is probably one of sadness because of the outcome, of course. But he was very aware that he was not mentally well, and he was also very aware that he was dealing with something much more profound than his daily reality, and trying to sort out what was his illness from what had been given to him, which was vitally important. I was reading this at the same time as the second Matrix film was coming out. The Matrix, what was it? Not Revolutions. The previous one to that was I don't remember, but anyway, which was also very, very much steeped in Gnosticism,
right.
And it was in fact through reading about the upcoming Matrix sequel that I found out about the Nag Hammadi library and started reading those texts and so on. And I quite by accident found out about this author who'd, by the way, written many of the films that I already loved, right? The Total Recall and a few others that had already come out at the time, Blade Runner, of course. Reading Valis really gave me a personal feel for this man who had discovered a way into Gnosticism that wasn't necessarily through books, although he was very, very well read. Clearly, I found out about Paracelsus through Philip K. Dick as well, and so on.
That's again. I think this is a point that scriptures, or we have to have a much broader conception of what scriptures are, and I think that any definition of scripture or sacred scriptures that can't capture things like comic books and film, it's probably a deficient definition of scripture given the reality of modernity and post-modernity. So
fully agree. Fully agree. Yeah.
So aside from the fact that you're a big Green Lantern fan, what's something that your viewers may be surprised to learn about you?
Okay, well, we kind of approached this at the beginning of this conversation, didn't we? I don't know how many viewers will know that my training is actually in hospitality.
It comes through. It comes through. I'm serious. It comes through, like the welcoming and the warmness. Like, hey. And I don't know if that's just because of your training or because it's just you, but there's clearly some synergy with those things. With those things.
It was what I, as a young adolescent, looking at what I should do with my life, it felt like it was what I should be doing. You know, I like greeting people. I like making people feel comfortable. And so, yeah, sure, hospitality. What I hadn't counted on, of course, was starting your day at 6:30 in the morning and then finishing your day at 3 o'clock in the morning, and and living on caffeine, and sleeping pills, right? Because you've got to make sure that you make those 3 hours of sleep count. I wanted a family, and that there was no possible way of being successful in that industry, of being as successful as I wanted to be in that industry, at least, and have time for a family life. There is no way I would have any time for any of this if I was in the hospitality industry. There's no question, of course, right? And so yes, it's through deep boredom in my studies that I branched off and started learning about religions of the world. Yeah.
And I think we're all better off for it. Not that you wouldn't have been great in the hospitality business. Yeah, a lesson I learned early on in the private sector was that you can have time or money, but not both. And that's so right. I think I picked time. Time is, it's a better investment in the end.
So essential. Yeah, I figured that most people, given the choice of what to buy, would buy time.
Invest in memory.
Yes.
Yeah, invest in memories, and you can only do that with time. You can only do that in time. All right, the impossible question: the top 3 occult books on your shelf. I can see staring down at you many, but what are your top 3? And you're not committing to them always and forever. But what are your top 3?
I will give you my top 3, but I will give them to you in a format that anyone should be able to find their own top 3 in following what I think should be their top 3. I think that if you're only going to have 3 books on esoteric topics on your shelf, there should be. This is if you're intending to practice, of course, right? If you're only interested in the scholarly aspect of learning about it, my answer doesn't make sense. But if you're intending to practice, then I think that a practitioner should have at least a book on magical history, at least a book on magical protection, which should be not necessarily assimilated, but well understood where to find information if things turn, well, if it becomes necessary to protect yourself. You don't want to be having to learn where to look for information. You want to be able to protect yourself immediately, right? And the 3rd book, I think, should be simply a magical system, a practical system of magic. And that's going to really depend wildly on the preferences of the individual, right? Some people will want a very clearly nice system, and others will want a very clearly difficult system, others will want a very clearly intellectual system, and others will want a system that validates this, that, or the other aspect of their identity, right? So in terms of a magical history book, I'm going to go with Geosophia. So the second book in the trilogy, Jake Stratton Kent has written this trilogy of books. The second book and the third book are actually in 2 volumes, called the Encyclopedia Goetica. And the first book is the one that I was talking about earlier on, the True Grimoire, which is re-released today. The second one is Geosophia, and this is the one that I'm just waiting for a second edition of. It's coming. It's been announced. We know that this is going to be republished probably next year. So yeah, very, very excited about that. But I have it on Kindle, right, while I'm waiting for a hardcover. And it is a beautiful and thorough and, I'm going to say, exhaustive history of sorcerous magic from the Goes, so from the Greek sorcerers who were not liked by Greek society, but then it goes into every aspect of it, from Greek polytheism to Egyptian polytheism, and then going into further and further into modernity. It is so comprehensive, and I think personally, I think it's essential if someone is looking into modern practical magic. That's a really, really nice one to have. Someone else might recommend in that category, magical histories. They might recommend, of course, Agrippa's 3 books. They might recommend the Records of John Dee. But yes, a magical history to get an idea of some historical theory. Yeah. Then for the magical protection, I'm going to go back to Damon Brand. The Gallery of Magic have this very, very approachable, very, this is your problem, this is what you do. This is your problem, this is what you do. You know, really very, very prescriptive, very easy to approach, very, very beginner friendly. It's called Magical Protection. Damon Brand is the author, same as the 72 Angels of Magic that I was talking about earlier on. Again, I really like his system. There's a 30-day ritual which is supposed to give you an overall protection, but then, you know, the rest of the book is, if you have a particular problem, if this is your problem, then you can do this, and it's very well informed. It's again, it doesn't tell you why you should do this like this. That's not what it's interested in doing. It's interested in giving you solutions. I appreciate that. Jason Miller has got a fantastic book also, the Protection and Reversal Magic. And let me see, there's Josephine McCarthy, of course, has got the Exorcists workbook. Is it the workbook? I think it's the Exorcists workbook. Anyway, all, again, practitioners that I have great respect for, and the material in those books are strong and useful. And then for the practical system, I think that's really going to depend. Are you interested in traditional witchcraft? Are you interested in 19th century magical societies? Are you interested in whatever it might be? And for me, I like the Aurum Solis. They started off at around the same time as the Golden Dawn, but I seem to agree with a lot of with everything that they say that I've seen so far. Right, let's go. Let's go with that. So personally, I have a great affinity for the Aurum Solis. I will probably never join a magical society. I don't do well with groups of people telling me what I can and can't and should and shouldn't do. I like to make mistakes. It's a longer path. There's no question about it, but it's just the way I am. But yeah, given a specific society, yes, the Aurum Solis is the one that I particularly like, and Mysteria Magica by Denning and Phillips is the book where they give a lot of their practices, right, their day-to-day practices. But then maybe you prefer Sorceress approach, in which case, any of Aidan Wachter's fantastic books. There's The Psychic Witch, of course, by Matt Orwin, which got all of those awards over the past couple of years. Many people who like a Wiccan approach, point to Matt Orwin's Psychic Witch as a really nice practical book. So yes, a history, stroke theory, a protection book, and a practical book.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. It's like magical prepping. Like sort of like magical prepping. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I have to check those out. Again, I'm so disconnected from the world of contemporary practice that this conversation is so illuminating for me to go check, go track down some books and learn and fill some gaps in. So I really appreciate your insights in that regard. Thank you, Denis. What's a book that needs a translation? What's a book that either you want to be translated because you can't read it, or it needs to be translated so that more people can read it?
Frater Acher drew my attention to the fact that the so-called complete works of Paracelsus that exists in the English language mounts up to about 100 pages.
The Gesamtausgabe of Paracelsus is massive if you see it in German. Oh yeah,
shelves and shelves of the stuff.
The Gesamtausgabe of Paracelsus is enormous.
Yeah. So that's the one. That's the one. I have no access, just because I don't speak German. Yes.
And even if you do, I read a little German, and it's all printed in the old Fraktur font, which can be impenetrable. And his German is like the early modern, the German, and he has a particularly weird style of writing. It's just, it's a mess. Yeah, that's a great. Paracelsus would be fantastic to get fully translated. I think there is a modern edition in German, though. I do think there may.
I'm pretty sure there is.
I think there's a 5-volume modern edition. Yeah. But yeah, and I think I looked it up once, and it was really expensive too. Paracelsus, who has the best name ever.
Yes.
Philippus Aureolus Philippus Bombastus von Hohenheim.
Yes.
They really puts these other magical names to shame.
Shame, yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna get one of those names. When your name includes who you're better than, you're really that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. To pick your brain one more time about publications. What are some upcoming publications that you're particularly excited about?
There are a few really good ones coming up. I've mentioned the True Grimoire enough already, and I'm very, very excited to see a new edition of that. But Iao, this is Anathema Publishing, and it's a collaboration once again between Gabriel Macari and Jose Gabriel Alegria Sabogal, who did all of that fantastic artwork for Aurora. This is the new edition of Aurora with my forward, I'm not sure. Maybe if I choose very carefully what picture to show from this, we won't get demonetized. But his art style is just superb. And they are putting the final touches on the printing now, where we're going to see this in our hands very, very shortly, on a book quite specifically directed towards Gnosticism, right? So it's a modern Gnostic book. And until I get it in my own hands, there's not very much more that I can say about that, other than I have the utmost respect for Gabriel's approach to Gabriel Macari's approach to Gnosticism, José Gabriel Alegría Sabogal's approach to Gnosticism, seeing them both collaborating on a book like this, with the form of an Anathema publishing book. I am very, very excited for this one. Very, very excited. Yeah,
it's always wonderful when style and substance can come together as they rarely do.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, I have no doubt that this is going to blow our minds. There's a book by Jason Miller, and Jason actually very kindly sent me a PDF of this book to read early. This is Consorting with Spirits, which will be out next month. I think the release date is 1st of May. I think that's right. And it seems to be a very, very nice introduction. Introduction might not be the right word. He does actually specify at the beginning that this is not a book for absolute beginners. This shouldn't be your first book on magic. But Jason is very well respected in the occult practitioner arena. All the books that he's published so far have been very, very well received and very well loved and appreciated. You know, he does have a very approachable style and a philosophy which many people can get behind. I think that's what people really appreciate about him. And so this is a book on how to approach spirits, specifically consorting, in the sense of becoming familiar with them, having them become, for lack of a better word, something like your friend, right? So someone that you will relate to on a regular basis, someone that a spirit, someone is the wrong word again, a spirit that you will develop a relationship with. I think that's possibly a book that's been missing on the market, and that a lot of people will appreciate. And then, possibly the last one will be The Esotericism of Dante, which I translated, and that should be, as I was saying earlier, in people's hands probably early next month.
Mazel tov on that. Congratulations. And
thank you.
And much hatzlacha, as we say. May you have lots of success.
Thank you very much.
In fact, you see this in magical Jewish magical amulets. It's the word hatzlacha is often thought to have magical power, but it means it comes from the same word as chizuk, which means like more power to you.
Oh, nice. I appreciate it.
Yeah, much hatzlacha is what we would say for with your publication.
Thank you, Justin.
Denis, any last thoughts? Any last words as we wrap up this collaboration, this great sort of mutual interview that we've been doing over the course of today? I've had a lot of fun. It's been really great getting to know you. And
so much, Justin. It's been a great pleasure. Yeah, setting this whole thing up has been so much fun, and the execution has just been just a delight. Thank you so much for coming up with the idea and doing it. It's just been great. Thank you so much. Very excited.
I share the same feeling. It's been great to sit down and just get to know you and get to pick our brains about, again, something that we really love. And I think that a lot of our audience out there really loves too is books. So, well, I'm super happy to have gotten to know you better, and I really look forward to us working together more in the future. This is just such a great opportunity that it's really a really great the beginning of a great friendship and collaboration. So thank you so much, Denny, for hanging out and chatting with me. So folks, again, you got to get over to Foolish Fish. Make sure to subscribe and consider becoming a member. A way of supporting a content creator who creates amazing content, who again is just creating content that helps you inform yourself, right? There's that's it's one thing to and again, I'll play on your name. It's one thing to give a man fish, it's another thing to teach a person to fish. And Denis is really teaching people to fish and really giving people access to a wide range of theoretical and practical knowledge. And so absolutely think folks should go over, especially folks interested in the practical side of esotericism. Just have a lot of respect for you in that regard. And I want folks to go over, subscribe, and consider supporting you on YouTube members. So
thank you so much, Justin.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I will see you next time, and let's be in touch.
Take care, everyone. Thank you. Cheers.